What is up, everybody? Welcome back to my continued trek through the novel series, Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation. We are on Volume 4, Chapter 10, going into the extra chapter as well. A lot of really cool stuff here. I want to give a pre-warning for everybody that, yes, the extra chapter is going to be stuff that I assume is going to be covered in the second season of Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation, the anime series, so keep that in mind if you're trying to keep completely clean from the anime adaptation stuff that they have not covered yet. But with that warning out of the way, let's jump right into it. Where we left off, Ruijerd is in the Doldia village, and he's currently pretty much seen as a hero. But the weather's clearing up, and they're now able to move on. In Chapter 10, we open up with the eve before they leave the village. You have this point where Eris and Tona have a fight. And yes, obviously, Eris wins. Tona's not going to win against a fight with Eris. But he does kind of note the idea that, obviously, it's because they were going to leave, that Tona starts making a lot of mean comments, says that Geese terrible, and insults Ruijerd. And then at some point, even though Eris is holding back, eventually Tona strikes at Eris, and Eris beats the crap out of her. Says, yes, you held back, right? Yes, obviously. She's my friend. But he knows that she does look like she's ashamed of it. So he kind of notes to her, look, make sure that you say, make amends before we leave. As we go into the night, the last night that they're there, at some point, two kids, obviously Tona and Tersana, sneak in. I wouldn't say sneak. They terribly sneak into their hut. And at some point, they actually open up the door to go into Ruijerd's room, not knowing that's his room. And he gets up and he says, Eris is next door. What are you guys doing? Eris is next door. It's not this room. And they say sorry, but then Tona says, oh, I remember. I forgot to thank him for saving us. Tona has never told him that she was thankful for what he did to save them. She says that I was told that my injuries would have been fatal and that you healing me saved my life. And she even says, I don't even have scars. She goes to lift up her skirt to show that she has no scars on her leg. He obviously can't see anything because it's too dark, but still, she does it, showing that, I don't have any scars. Tersana's like, don't do that. I've heard that men have, really long mating seasons. She's like, well, honestly, he's seen my body before. It doesn't really matter. But additionally, if he's aroused, that would be great, because that would be my way of showing him things. It's kind of cute, pure, but also inappropriate at the same time. It was cute, though. He's kind of acknowledging what she's kind of doing. But at the same time, he notes that he can feel this presence next door that's getting really angry. So he's like, yeah, I accept it. So, Eris is over next door. Go on, that's fine. Your gratitude's accepted. And so, yes, they do go next door. And he says he could hear Eris, what do you want? And she's like, I could totally just, in my head, picture her standing there in her usual pose. But yeah, they chat through the night. They obviously make up. It's really cute. Following this, yes, they get their carriage and everything ready to leave. It looks like they've been pretty much outfitted with some great horses, a carriage, tons of supplies from the Doldia village. They really do take care of them. Also, technically, Geese decides to join them. And yes, very interesting. There was no duel. I don't know what the duel thing is. Honestly, the anime had at some point when they go to leave, Eris and Geese have a duel. And the strike, you don't even know what happens. Ruijerd even mentions in the anime, I don't know what happened, but I don't know how they won. It doesn't make any sense. And I was hoping that when I read the novel that I would get to that part and they would hopefully explain, but no, there's literally, it's not in the novel. It's anime original, or maybe it's in the manga. I was a little bit puzzled, like, when am I going to see this part? But no, they set on their venture. They head out from the village itself. They had at some point where Ruijerd was actually asking Geese if he was okay with traveling with Ruijerd. Obviously, he's a superb. And Geese says, yeah, I grew up in the demon continent. I'm a demon. I know all the stories after all. And he's like, well, Ruijerd's a superb. He's like, yeah, but that's different. Ruijerd saved my life. It was kind of funny because I was like, okay, here we go. Here's a story. Let's get a story going. Let's learn about what happened here. And he goes on, apparently Geese goes on this big, long explanation about how all this crazy stuff happened. He mentions that it was 30 years ago at some point, Ruijerd, he was being killed. He was almost going to get killed by a monster, and Ruijerd came in and saved him. That was that simple. And apparently Ruijerd doesn't remember it. But yeah, it was all in this whole stuff about how this whole long story about going on these adventures and having tons of women pleading for him not to leave, and yes, he saved me. From this point on, we get a little description of the Holy Sword Highway, the highway that they're actually traveling on. It's explained that the highway was created by Saint Millis, the founder of the Millis faith, which of course is the greatest denomination in the world. It is said that Saint Millis created the highway with a single swipe of their sword. It cut the mountains and the forest in half, splitting the Demon King in half. This highway itself has such a high density of mana itself that it repels the monsters from even coming near it, as well as any sorts of flooding and stuff kind of gets washed off of it. Ruijerd talks about how that abundance of mana capable of doing something like that is really scary. considering that a large abundance of mana itself can twist animals into monsters and, yes, technically transfer children from one continent to another. At this point, we get a little bit of insight into Geese himself. It seems like, you know, this is where we really push on the idea that he's really good outside of combat. He's really good at cooking. He kind of boasts about his cooking skills, and Ruijerd kind of jokes and says, "Oh, you're so amazing, hold me." And Geese is like, dude, don't do that. That's disgusting. And he's like, yeah, the feeling's mutual. He's so good at cooking that even Eris herself really badly wants him to teach her. Which he keeps asking why, and she keeps saying, for no reason at all, just want to learn how to cook, and he obviously knows what she wants it for. She wants to impress Ruijerd. But no, it seems like Geese is against teaching anybody how to cook, especially a woman. He doesn't want to teach any woman how to cook. And this gets into this whole description about how, yes, he was once in this party, Paul's party, and he was really good at cooking, and that was about the only thing that he was good at. He wasn't useful in combat. And yes, we do find out that he was good at swindling other groups and getting information, but it's almost as if he attributes the fact that he taught Zenith once how to cook. He doesn't say Zenith. He doesn't say Paul's party. He's just kind of mentioning the fact that he once taught this woman how to cook. She really badly wanted to get at this one guy's stomach with her cooking, and so he taught her how to cook, Zenith. And it's almost as if he attributes the party falling apart because he did that. Because he taught Zenith how to cook, she cooked really well for Paul, they fell in love, eventually got pregnant, and then the entire party fell apart. And why this hits him so hard is because he really liked being that party. He soon realized the moment that party fell apart, there was nowhere else for him. No matter what party he went to, there was no place that he can find his home. He was set in that party, and he feels like he kind of ruined it by helping Zenith capture Paul's heart. Yeah, Ruijerd kind of tries to push him to teach Eris, like, well, you found that woman find happiness. Again, he doesn't know it's Zenith. You helped that woman find happiness. Why don't you help Eris too? And he's like, well, I don't know. I've never seen her again, so I'm not sure if she's happy, but the man sure didn't turn out happy, kind of implying that because he's tied down. I don't know. I don't know. At this point, I wasn't sure when I read that if it's him saying that Paul and getting married and getting locked down in some home in Bueno Village means he's not happy, or if he's already ran into Paul since the disaster and he sees that Paul's terrible. Like right now, he looks horrific. Either way, it makes sense both ways. Moving on, we get the monument. At some point, at some roadside stop, they end up stopping, and Ruijerd finds a stone monument. And the stone monument, he says, has a single character inscribed upon it, and 7 motifs surrounding it. The character itself was the word 7 in fighting god tongue. He's told that's the 7 great powers. This refers to the strongest people in the world itself. Apparently, at the end of the Second Great Human-Demon War, a person known as the Technique God came up with the idea. He was one of the strongest people in the world, and they selected 7 people, including themselves, and then declared them to be the 7 strongest people in the world. Geese, at this point, after describing all this stuff, points to Ruijerd and says, hey, he probably knows more about this. And Ruijerd's like, oh yeah, that brings back memories. I once trained very hard just in hopes of becoming a student of one of theirs. He then describes the hierarchy itself, which starts with number 1 being Technique God, number 2, Dragon God, 3, Fighting God, 4, Demon God, 5, Death God, 6, Sword God, and 7, North God. And Ruijerd kind of questions, like, why haven't I heard about this? And Ruijerd kind of, I guess, excuses it in the idea that this is something that was well known up until the Laplace War, and then it kind of became unknown. There's several reasons behind that. Mainly that the Laplace War itself brought about a lot of change within this list. Many of them went missing. Besides the Technique God, all had participated in the war itself. 3 were killed, 1 went missing, and another one was sealed away. Only the Dragon God made it out in one piece, which, yes, we can guess who that is. And after several years, those at the bottom kept swapping spots until the phrase just kind of fell out of use. So yeah, the listing is Technique God, Dragon God, Fighting God, all went missing, and of course, the Demon God is still the way, Laplace. But yeah, one of the main reasons why it's kind of not really used anymore is because most of the people that were deemed as the strongest are kind of absent. How can you test to see who's the strongest? But it was interesting because Ruijerd kind of questions, well, I think that's probably changed by now, right? Geese says that supposedly there's a rumor that the monument itself is infused with mana, so it actually changes based on that. So if somebody were to take over the role of, say, the third, the monument should change. But again, that's just him saying supposedly. But no, it's kind of interesting to note that many people believe that the Technique God himself didn't even exist, and that the only reason that the list itself was created is because people were looking for people that could defeat them. But no, really interesting stuff. I think that was kind of a fascinating kind of side note in the anime itself. Obviously, again, we kind of eventually noted who could have been the Dragon God himself, Laplace being obviously the Demon God. it is kind of curious to try to figure out what all those other ones were. And I think the funny thing that happened, I think in the anime that did not happen in the novel itself, is that at some point, Ruijerd sort of flags himself by saying that he didn't want to run into any of them because if Ruijerd could be defeated by them, he doesn't want to see them. So again, kind of flagged what happens in the second part. Moving on, it takes about a month for them to get out of the Great Forest. They go past the Blue Mountain where they eventually stop by the small city. It's run by dwarves. There's no adventure guild, but Geese mentions that there's a lot of weapons here that are very cheap but very well made. And even though Eris really badly wants to buy stuff, Ruijerd is like, no, if we end up having to pay a fortune again to get Ruijerd over the next bit of sea, we probably should save our money. It's kind of funny because one of the clerks ends up mocking Ruijerd, and then he mentions that he's intermediate sword god style, and the guy's like a little bit shocked by it. Eventually the roads diverge, and we have the East Mountain to the large dwarf town, the northeast to the elves, and the southwest to go to the vast lands where the halflings dwell. He does mention the idea that if they enter the mountains, there's a hot spring apparently there, and he really badly wants to go there. He imagines Eris with her wet hair and peachy skin. He's kind of wondering if it's one of those merged baths or not. But he's kind of swayed by them mentioning that, you know, after the raining season, that place is probably a mess. There's no reason to go there. But that concludes our journey of Ruijerd in the 4th volume as he leaves this valley and goes straight towards the holy country of Milis. This is, of course, the domain of the men, and it's enough to make Ruijerd's heart leap. And that's where we get into the Extra Chapter Guardian Fitz. And this is where I get a little bit confused, honestly. This is where I get a little bit confused. I thought I knew what was going on, and apparently I don't. As this kind of opens up to describe what exactly happened, you know, following that whole situation with the Extra Chapter in the previous volume. This fallen angel that saved the Princess Ariel. It opens up describing the mental thought process of this guy falling out of the sky, panicking about the fact that he's going to hit the ground and die. And the entire time he's trying to think of what his teacher told him to do in a situation like this. He knows he can't fly. He tries using magic in order to kind of lower his speed, tries to wrap himself in water, all leading up to the point where he, unfortunately, hits head first in the ground. This has him waking up in a bed and he's panicking. It describes this as a 10-year-old man that is, unfortunately, on his bed after this dream that he keeps having over and over again. He's quickly greeted by Luke, who kind of notes that, yes, he kind of messed himself. At the same time, Luke is trying to reassure Fitz because he's like, you know, look, a lot of people had a really traumatizing experience that day, so we don't blame you. But, you know, he kind of tries to rush them, you know, look, we gotta get changed. Lady Ariel's waiting for us. This is where it describes that, yes, Fitz is a magician. 10 years old, able to cast without chanting, had an exceptional teacher, already intermediate in so many schools of spells, as well as advanced in several other ones. Unfortunately, at this point, a vagabond, upon waking up, discovers that their entire family and hometown has been lost. But thankfully, one woman caught his eye, Princess Ariel. Seeing how he wielded magic and used incantationless spells, she quickly gave him the role as her guardian. Following this, we kind of get an idea of their daily roles. Their whole duty when they first wake up is to go wake up Ariel. This is normally a job for a lady-in-waiting, but based on the fact that they've recently had these cases of attempted assassinations of her, they end up having her guardians actually do this role. At this point, we get a little bit of sense that Fitz isn't really, I guess, adapting very quickly to this whole new role, because apparently if they don't wake up the princess in a certain time, they'd be punished, but it seems like Fitz is given a little bit of leeway there. Additionally, Fitz has to help her with her changing, and he's not very good at it. But thankfully, Luke is always there to kind of give him a little bit of help. If he gets a button wrong and he has to try to figure out how to fix it, Luke always kind of points it out while making a little brief comment. Luke always kind of looks after Fitz. Now, while Ariel is very acceptant of Fitz, and obviously Luke is taking care of Fitz as well and helping guide him, it's not as if everybody in the palace is happy about this. This is a commoner walking in the halls of this palace. They really hate the fact that this Fitz guy walks around with glasses on, sunglasses, and it's noted that apparently the king himself approved of him to wear them because they're kind of magical items that sense when Ariel's in danger. Kind of necessary after the previous incident. But all this gossip is actually exactly what Ariel wants. With everybody focused on how it's terrible that Fitz is walking alongside of her, and the maids are squeaking because they're seeing Luke and Fitz walk together, and it's like this womanizer that now has this, that they think hates men, now has this, you know, little boy next to him that he's taking care of. It kind of helps take attention away from Ariel, who, as we noted with the previous volume's extra chapter, is currently trying to become queen. And so as she's trying to move these pieces around, having anything distract from her is actually a benefit to her. They even note specifically some nobles whispering about where the origin of Fitz is. Somebody even mentioned that it's probably the illegitimate child of a noble. They talked about how somebody went to Eris's birthday party And obviously Stardust was gloating about this boy that was there, this boy that nobody had seen before, and they're kind of assuming that that was probably the boy they were talking about. Following this, we get a little bit of sense of exactly what movement that Ariel is doing in order to become queen. We've already noted before that she's really good with the common people. The common people love her, but unfortunately, all the high nobles are already kind of swept up by her two brothers. So we have this scene where she's meeting with Pilemon, obviously Luke's father. Pilemon noticed Greyrat. They're currently looking at moving some people into the Knights Guild. Have them look around in there, get a sense for the guild itself, and learn firsthand from the guild's accountants. It talks about how Pilemon is one of the top supporters of Ariel. While he has poor judgment, he's a young man acting as a liege lord of the Milbots region. And with his help, she's sort of laying the groundwork for some support from the nobles. And what Pilemon has kind of suggested to Ariel is sort of to work on capturing the undecided voters, to focus on the countryside nobles who haven't really involved themselves in any of the political matters. And that's basically those that are kind of in the middle to lower class nobles, those that the royal family probably don't give any attention to. And one way that they're trying to capture them is Pilemon kind of offering to use his power to appoint them government officials. It goes into talking a little bit more about Pilemon, the fact that he is the head of the Nodos Greyrat family, but he's the youngest of the other Greyrats, so he doesn't really hold much popularity or coin, which is kind of something that Ariel can kind of relate to. Obviously, she has a huge gap in popularity and power over her two brothers. At this point, we see that Luke and Fitz are kind of standing guard. It kind of describes the equipment they actually carry. They have boots of swiftness that lets them move twice as fast, flame-trapped cloak, which kept their body temperature normal, not letting heat pass through, and additionally, gloves of overpowering, which reduce the impact of the palm by half. Additionally, Luke carried a cutting sword that could tear through steel shields. This is all stuff that was kind of obtained by Ariel following the whole incident, obviously trying to equip her guards a little better. It also explains that Fitz carries a small rod, the exact type of rod that would be given to an apprentice who has begun learning magic. We have a little brief kind of exchange between Pilemon and Luke, obviously Pilemon being Luke's father. As Pilemon goes to leave after their little meeting, he says to make sure to look after and protect your ladyship, and Luke sort of laughs it off, but still gives his bow, like he still has that custom bow that he has to do. Following this, we have Fitz confronting Ariel, asking if possibly she was able to find both his family and his master, which she replies that she has not. Apparently, there was two conditions for Fitz basically becoming Ariel's guardian. One was that Ariel would help find his family and his master, but additionally, Fitz would be kind of forgiven for entering the palace because obviously falling from the sky into the palace, it's not a good thing. You're not supposed to enter the palace without authority, which obviously falling into the palace, even if you're falling, is still a grave crime. This is where we get a little bit into the politics surrounding the displacement incident. It's obvious that Fitz has lost his family and everything due to this displacement incident. The entire Fatoa region has been devastated because of it. While the liege lords themselves should oversee the duty of actually figuring out where everybody went, seemed like the Boreas family obviously has lost all their land and their people under their command along with it. And sadly, the nobles themselves seen this opportunity as a way to attack the Boreas family. All the family could do at this point was just do everything they could to preserve their position of power. They didn't have the luxury of searching for anybody. They organized something of a search party, but apparently it was all just for show. Ariel had to use her own money out of her own pocket in order to assemble a team and command them to search. It is technically nice to note that at some point, the high-ranking minister Darius, who is currently supporting the first prince, will later take the Boreas family under their wing and protect them and invest into a search party. That search party would eventually swell in size, but apparently that's a story for another time, probably another extra chapter. Jumping back to the discussion between Ariel and Fitz about this, Ariel is obviously very sad that she's not able to find his family, and with that sad look on Fitz's face, she kind of feels pity for him. But at this point, Ariel proposes that Fitz stay the night at Ariel's place that night. Heard that he's having a lot of problems with nightmares, not sleeping very well, and that, sleeping alongside somebody else would probably help. Fitz is freaking out like, no, I'm just some country bumpkin. I can't sleep alongside the princess. And Luke's over there going, no, don't worry about it. Just think of it as a reward. This is where we jump over to a little conversation between the Prince Gabriel, which is the first prince, and Darius that we just talked about. It seems like the two of them are really keeping an eye on what Ariel's doing. They're not fooled. They know exactly what she's doing. They know what she's currently pushing at. Talk about how they're trying to move people into the Knights Guild. The prince assuming that she's trying to create a coup. But it seems like Darius is trying to, soothe the fears that the prince has.
talking about that's not really something that she'd probably be doing. She doesn't have any political power, not to act quite yet. Seems that Darius has been watching her over the past year very quietly, and knows that if they plan on becoming Prince Gabriel's enemies, they're going to be dealt with quickly. There's kind of a little bit of talk of like, should we take out Pilemon or something like that? But the way he's kind of put it is that he figures that it's better than plucking the buds, that we just go right for the ones sowing the seeds. It was kind of funny here because when they were mentioning this whole thing, they're like, at the very end, they're like, there's only one other person that heard this conversation between the two of them. And that was this one slave girl that was sitting on his lap, Darius's lap. And he's just, of course, having his way, filling her up left and right and sticking his finger in her mouth. And it knows that she was the one that was listening. It questions, who is this girl? And I'm like, oh crap, I'm thinking, I'm running back. I'm going through my whole memory going, okay, is there a young girl somewhere in the story that we don't have accounted for? And yes, I do technically know what goes on with the second part of the first season. So I'm going, okay, well, Aisha, Nora, no, can't be those two. Who is it? No, I have no young girl that's unaccounted for. So I was really racking my brain for that. But we end up finding out exactly who that girl is as we get into that night when Fitz goes to Ariel's chamber. Apparently the women in waiting has completely cleaned up Fitz, dressed him up and got him smelling good and sent him on to Ariel's chambers where, yes, he's very nervous. He sits down next to her and she tries to get close to him and Fitz moves away some more. And at some point she tells him to lay down, ends up pinning him down. He's freaking out and going, no. But at some point he kind of gives up. Like, technically the princess is all Fitz has anymore. Like, he's lost everything, and this is the woman that's basically taking care of him. So he kind of just says, I can't really go against her wishes. But then at that point, she kind of says, no, I'm just joking. Gets off of him. Lays next to Fitz and starts talking about how Fitz needs to learn to kind of lean on her as she leans on him. Kind of explain the fact that the two of them technically have experienced the same thing. They were both there that day. Kind of have a realization point at this point that Ariel chose Fitz because not that Fitz was great, not that Fitz could do incantationless spells, but that Fitz experienced the same things she did. There's a relatability there between the two of them. It was somebody that understood her pain. And kind of learning about this, it kind of soothes Fitz's heart. Like, he's able to finally sleep for once, and as he's kind of slowly fading out of consciousness, he feels a presence in the room. Yes, it's that young girl, that was in that room with Darius and the prince. And this girl lifts up a blade and goes to plunge down on top of the princess. Fitz quickly rolls over and shields the princess and then shoots a magic spell at this slave girl assassin thing, knocks her away. After Fitz calls out to Luke, that's when the point the girl just kind of focuses on Fitz. Knowing that Fitz is now between her and her target, she goes after Fitz. Fitz quickly uses a spell on her and she quickly dodges it, uses like a feint. She's not sure if this girl knew, like, is that skilled, was able to kind of dodge it, or if it was just, dumb luck. This is when the assassin whips out this blade, throws it at Ariel, and Fitz quickly, instinctively kind of reaches out to block it, and thankfully just catches the tip of the blade with his finger, so it kind of changes its trajectory. At this point, Fitz lets out one big spell again and just completely destroys this assassin, like limbs all broken, sent through this hole in the wall that he created earlier, all the way down to this death fall. Fitz returns back to the princess to check to see if she's okay. At this point, he starts to kind of get this feeling that he's losing consciousness. Apparently, this small little nick on his finger was poison, and he was going to die. But thankfully, he quickly used a healing spell to kind of detox it and loses consciousness anyways. Following this whole incident, we pretty much learned that the nobles have kind of changed their perspective around Fitz. He just saved the princess's life, but not only that, but he defeated this very well-known assassin. This assassin was known as Night's Eye Crow, who's been working for the Asteroid Kingdom for 10 years. A number of nobles have fallen victim to her. And Fitz, upon defeating this assassin, has kind of demonstrated that his strength was genuine. They dubbed him Silent Fitz because he didn't speak much and he used voiceless casting. But unfortunately for them, the assassination attempts just continued, one after another, but thankfully Fitz kind of warding them all off. While the Knights were conducting an investigation to try to figure out who was causing these assassination attempts, unfortunately Ariel just assumes they're all being paid off, that nothing will ever come of the investigations. It kind of drags down Ariel to the point where she's just mentally exhausted by all these attacks. She knew who was ordering them, but couldn't do anything. And it's at this point that Pilemon suggests that she leave the country under the guise of studying abroad. This kind of wraps up the chapter explaining how the fates of Fitz and Ruijerd will eventually intertwine. So, yes, I know who that is. Yes, I know it is. I really debated how I was going to go through this entire chapter. I didn't really want to reveal it right off the bat. I figured it'd be more funny to kind of later on go, yeah, by the way, it's obviously Sylvie. I don't know. It was fun. honestly, again, I still don't know the full details of what's going on with Sylphie. Again, I'm assuming it's Sylphie. It looks like her in the anime. We can blame the anime for that. That's kind of the bad thing. Yes, you could technically guess. At some point when Ariel is pinning down Fitz, at some point Fitz goes, "You know what I am." And obviously indicating that I'm a girl, which I don't think she'd mind because she's been bedding all the maids. But additionally, having a family that's lost in the Fatoa region and a master, having the wand, having incantationless spells, being intermediate and advanced, everything points to Sylphie. Now, again, I still don't know why she is the way she is. All I'm assuming is that because she... I don't know, maybe because she struck her head. I don't know if it was their decision. I don't know if it was Ariel's decision to call her Fitz. I don't know. I don't really know exactly all the details of why she's Fitz, why she's acting like a boy. She obviously knows that she's a girl. I assume that Luke knows that it's a girl. Why she has white hair. I'm assuming all that stuff is going to be explained later on. But it was cool though. I finally know why she wears those stupid glasses. I finally know why Sylphie wears those stupid, ugly sunglasses that I absolutely hate. The moment I seen the sunglasses in the anime, I'm like, oh, those look terrible. Please take them off. At least they have a story purpose now. The king allowed her to wear them, but no, it was cool. It's obviously a lot of stuff that we're probably going to see at the very beginning of the second season, and I'm really curious to see how that all plays out. Again, we technically know based on the very ending of the first season that Sylphie does eventually go to an academy. Now, I don't know if the study abroad thing is that Ariel is going to end up going to that academy as well, if she's going to change her appearance or how she looks. I don't think I remember seeing a gold lock girl in that room. I can probably go look at it again, but it's cool to see that Sylphie has kind of gained a little bit of independence. But at the same time, I don't think she's amnesiac because she does know that she lost her family and her master. So I'm wondering if the displacement incident both affected her hair color and affected some details about her memories. But no, I really do like seeing that Sylphie has gained that independence. Obviously, the big concern that Paul had was that she was so dependent on Ruijerd. But now seeing her over here and still the age of 10, yes, she's timid. Yes, she's, has some issues, but for the most part, she's really skilled and she's kind of creating her own life. She is supporting Ariel now. Yes, she's still asking about her life. She's still asking about her master and everything, but she's forging out on her own. And I kind of like seeing this journey of Ruijerd go in this direction and technically Sylphie over here having her own life, her own journey, and hopefully, yes, as it kind of describes, having that intertwine with Ruijerd in some way that'll hopefully be very interesting. Seemingly, it's probably going to be the Academy based on the end of the first season, but we'll have to wait and see. Again, technically seeing Pilemon, who again is, of course, Paul's father, seeing how he's intertwined with Ariel as well. Seeing like all these different forces all kind of intertwining in some way, and seeing how like people like Paul's father ties in with the princess that's trying to become the queen is kind of interesting. I always love the fact that every character this writer brings up intertwines in the story somehow. And that's it. That is Volume 4. We've got it done. It's in the bag. Volume 4 is done. Time to move on to Volume 5. What an absolutely crazy amount of additional information that we got from these two chapters alone. Obviously, more so in the extra chapter, if anything, but really, really cool. I think the big takeaway that I got from this, and I didn't really speak about it too much when I was going through the actual chapter, is in the extra chapter talking about the idea of the search party and what Astra Kingdom is doing to search for the displaced. It specifically gets into the idea that this Darius is going to be somebody that is going to pay in to help search for people. And my mind immediately goes to, yes, I know you want to talk about it later, book, but I want to talk about it now. And I'm obviously connecting a lot of things that were in the first season adaptation, but it makes me very curious as to what Darius's goal is. It mentioned specifically that Darius will support the Boreas family, which doesn't make any sense to me. Yes, technically they are high-ranking nobles, or at least pretty decent high-ranking nobles. I mean, they're heading the entire Fatoa region. But specifically, why would Darius take the Boreas family under his wing? Unless they've seen some sort of control from having Eris. Now, that's where I get into my questions of why Darius would be doing this. Because we know that Darius is working alongside the prince, Gabriel, and they're looking for power. Obviously, they're looking for support and they're looking for power. But I'm assuming the scene that we've seen with Saros being executed, I believe that was Gabriel and Darius standing in front of him, looking down upon him, just based on the hair color and stuff like that and how chubby Darius is. So it seems like at some point they are going to double cross Saros and they're going to execute him, but it still seems like they want the Greyrat family under their wing. So Darius, I'm assuming, is going to take out Saros and take the rest of his family upon him. And so I could see Eris being some sort of significant thing. Because, yes, I guess technically a lot of the Boreas family was displaced, but we already know from Geese that
Her mother is gone. Her father's gone. She found both of them in the conflict zone dead and basically confirmed their death. So the only thing we have left is Eris. So it could be that Darius wants the support of the family, and they're going to use the last remaining member, which is Eris. And so that's why he's doing a search parties. He's trying to find out where Eris is. Now, how's that turn into this big grand scale search? I guess if it's all to find her, that could be the case. Alphonse's mention of Pilemon, that Pilemon wants to take Eris under his wing. So it seems like based on what this is saying and based on what we've seen with Saras being taken out and with what happened at the end of the first season, it seems like they want Eris. Like, Pilemon wants Eris for power, and Alphonse recommends it to Eris because she would have protections and she would be able to protect her people. But my ultimate conclusion is that Darius is going to be setting up some sort of search party because he wants to find Eris. I don't think this is what they're talking about when they're talking about Roxy and her team and what Paul is doing, because that seems like it's too late in the whole picture. I think Roxy and Paul, what they're doing, I think is funded by Ariel, because it mentions in this chapter that Ariel is paying whatever she has, which isn't that much, but it is a good amount, in order to search for people for the displacement. So she has her own search party happening. And when Roxy, when she was talking about how they were going from city to city looking for people, she was cursing the Asura Kingdom. Like, they weren't doing much, but they were paying into search requests. So when they would go to the guild, they would put in a request. If somebody fulfilled that request to find a missing person, they would then send it back to Asura Kingdom. The Asura Kingdom would pay. I'm thinking that's Ariel specifically, because it seems like a meager amount they're helping, and I think that's because Ariel's doing whatever she can in order to find people for the sake of Fitz or Sylphie. I'll be curious, and I think it'll probably explain it once we get into the novel's description of what happened with Paul and his search for his family. I'm thinking we're going to probably have him go to the Asura Kingdom possibly, or maybe to Pilemon, and request, we need to find these people, and Pilemon may go strictly to Ariel, or Ariel directly will do it. It'll be really cool to find out that Paul went to Pilemon, because I know that he does not have a good relationship with Pilemon, but Pilemon right now has an interconnection to the Asura Kingdom, to the royal family, through Ariel. And I think Ariel's going to turn around and probably maybe try to push the king to do something, or she'll just go, I'll pay it out of my pocket. Don't worry about it. Either way, really cool additional stuff to get into, and I, as usual, eat it all up. Also, in this set of chapters, I really did like the little extra scene with Tona and Ruijerd. It was just kind of, again, very innocent, cute, a little bit pervy, but at the same time, it was giving a little bit more context. But anyways, that is it for Volume 4. I hope you guys enjoyed this bit of information that we got into in here, especially with the extra chapter. Obviously, I know a lot of people were looking forward to my thoughts on that. I'm really looking to see where Ariel's story goes. Obviously, I've already looked at the chapter list in the Volume 5, so I hope it's not that simple. It kind of spoiled things for me, and I really don't want that to be the case, but we'll see. We'll see where fate ties everybody together. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. As always, if you did, make sure to hit that like button down below. Comment. Let me know what you thought of this segment of chapters. I really love hearing from you guys. The feedback is awesome. I hope that you'll be patient. I try to get to everybody. I might not be reply to everybody, but I am reading them, and I really do appreciate your guys' comments and your feedback and your support. For those new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you get all my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, this coverage of the Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation novel series, I'll be going through the whole thing. If you do really appreciate this content and you're able to, I greatly appreciate if you consider supporting us on Patreon, our tips link, or super thanks button down below. It helps keep this going on. It keeps me doing this stuff and able to do this as a full-time thing. I definitely appreciate everybody that considers and those that have. If you're not able to, you still can support the channel by sharing this content out, letting your friends know about this whole channel. I greatly appreciate everybody that does, and y'all take care.